and welcome to Fat Squirrel Speaks. Today is a Tuesday, and this is episode 102. It's 202. See, I was like all full steam ahead. That's what I get. Hello! I'm your host, Sarah. I am the Fat Squirrel on Ravelry and the Fat SQRRL on Instagram. What? That's what I am. Craziness, yo. Thanks for new watchers. Hey, how are you? Thanks even more to returning watchers. That's right. I don't know, do we do this at the beginning? We never do this, but I don't know. I feel like I should because I am really grateful. Because y'all are kind of awesome. As evidenced by from the boards that I'm about to do in a minute, because it's amazing. Let me just say, I might be slightly distracted because A, I'm me, and B, my house smells so weird. I know, right? Did I just admit that to you? I don't know what it is. Is it just our like collective funk? We've turned out we had the AC off for about a week now because our highs are only like in the 80s or low 80s, and it's getting down below 70 at night. That's kind of like my personal requirement. Like, is it just like our funk collectively like accumulating to the point where I'm just like, why does it smell weird? Am I getting a migraine? Could that be it? I'm not sure which is worse. Should I hope that I'm getting a migraine? Or should I hope that my house is funky and I'm not getting a migraine? I don't know. I'm torn on that one. I'm not really sure. Oh my gosh. What is happening? I don't even know. It's like not a smell that I can identify in any way. It's not like a smell of deadness. It's not a smell of mushy potato that's in the bottom of the potato bin that you forgot about. It's not that smell. I don't know what it is. I don't care. I know, whatever. Shush. You can identify, right? No, you can't. You're amazing people and you're immaculate and stuff. But what is it? I don't know. This is not a show about the smell of my house. So this week's episode will have Shenanigans. And it will have from the boards. It's a healthy dose, yo. And it will actually also have knitting, no spinning. Because I have I've done some spinning, but not too much. Because I am on like a knitting, must knit all the things, that thing that you get, right? Like again, I think the temperature, it's like sap running, right? Somehow you get the temperature to drop below a certain temperature at night, and suddenly I'm like, when can I put flannel sheets on my bed? When can I knit all the things? I got to wear a hat to the bus stop the other day, and I was overjoyed. Although my hair is now way too long to wear hats appropriately. I keep hoping that it'll get long enough that I can braid it so that I never have to get another haircut again. But gosh, my hair grows slow. What's up, hair? I just want to like have braids and a hat all the time. That's not too much to ask for. I'm gonna end up rage cutting it any second. If you're newer to the podcast, that's when I go crazy in the shower, in the bathroom after taking a shower, and I just cut my hair in the bathroom mirror. I feel it coming, but I'm trying to resist. Anyway, let's talk about some stuff. Shenanigans! Oh my gosh. The weekend before last time we went on a bike ride, but that was a small thing, but it was nice. We went up into town more than we usually do because I'm just now getting comfortable. It's so hard to admit this. It's not really hard to admit this. I'm a human. I am very nervous to ride the bicycle on anything that also has cars on it. So I'm like a strictly bike path gal, and like a bike path that doesn't cross too many roads because that's scary. I know it's stupid, but it's real. Especially when you have a child. So this last weekend we actually went up into town more. We have the Indianapolis Cultural Trail, which runs up from very close to where I live. We have a bike path that connects to it. up into town and around to town, and then it connects to other things, and then back down. So we did that, and it was really nice. It was fun and cute. But it does bring a point, because my bum hurt the next day quite a bit. And while I don't think this is necessarily the solution for me, I think this is more a solution for people who are actually doing long distance rides, I did feel like I needed to share, because today, right before I started the podcast, Twins at Ellen on the Instagrams totally posted a thing about they had just gone on a super long bike ride. Okay, now I have to look it up. I thought it was going to be right there, but Instagram is messing with me lately. I don't know what their problem is. She just went on a 50-mile bike ride, so 80 kilometers. So awesome. But then 7 Autumn 5, who's one of my Indiana folks, asked her about her bum. Like, how does she keep her bum from hurting so much? And Twins had answered these 2 things. 2 critical things. Gender-specific seat. So there are gender-specific bike seats. And a shop with, and she specifically says, I kid you not, an assometer. And I looked this up, and Twins said, I didn't think Twins had made anything up, but fact check is important, right? So it's actually this, like, from what I can tell, it is like this memory, it looks almost like a memory foam or some sort of like foam that keeps the indentation of your bum. And it's not like a fancy thing. It's not like a digital, like when they measure your stride and your feet and it's not like that. It's like an old school looking-ish panel that they sit down, and then you sit on it like in a position like you are riding a bicycle. So, you know, it's not like a normal standard sitting position for most people, unless you're like riding a cruiser like me, which is why I don't think it pertains to me as much. But I could be wrong. If I was going to ride 50 miles, though, I would totally go, or 80 miles, I would go and find an assometer stat. But you sit on it, and it measures the distance between your sit bones, because that's completely different than like this measure of your actual buttocks. Like, it's a different measurement. So people can have a really wide, it's like a Sikil, I don't know what it is, a really wide one, but have a really small bottom, but their frame is different inside their body. You know what I mean? Like me, I might not have a really wide measurement because my bigness is a lot this way versus this way. You know what I mean? So like I may not have a super wide thing, even though I have a super wide butt. But so you can go and get that measured, and then that will give you a custom seat, because it's not, and she specifies this too, that it's not just the cushioning of your seat. Sometimes extra cushioning and foamy stuff on your seat, and this is not just Twins at Ellen. Other people have also mentioned this too. Because when I first started riding my bike, I had a whole thing about trying to find a seat that worked for my butt, and it was. I bought like 2 other bicycle seats, but that's okay. It's fine now. I've got a bicycle seat. But yeah, if I was going to do like a tour, like if I was going to go more than 10 miles, I probably would need a different seat. But anyway, it's not just the cushiness of the seat, because sometimes the cushiness of the seat, it compresses, like the foam or whatever, and then that actually puts more pressure on soft tissues versus the bone itself. So I just thought I would mention that, because that's really I need to have like Ask a Fat Lady. Twins at Ellen is not a fat lady. But fat ladies pay attention to this stuff. Then we can like bring it all together and disseminate this information. Because dude, the internet has a lot of bad things about it, but those are good things about it. Right? You can totally ask a human that you trust not to make fun of you and tell you that an assometer is a real thing when it's not. Like you can ask that person, and then they will tell you, and then you can go out into the world with more confidence. And like, high five, internet. Thank you for that. So let's use the internet for good, people. Oh my gosh, should we totally do an Ask a Fat Lady podcast? We clearly should start doing Ask a Fat Lady. Contribute to my Patreon page, people. Okay, patreon.com/thefatsquirrel or something. Just search, I'll put it down there. Woolen versus worsted spinning? We'll do it. Ask a Fat Lady? We'll do it. Actually, we're totally going to do woolen versus worsted. Even if you don't contribute to the Patreon page. But I will do that. In fact, I have it on my list of things to do to put up a thread on the Ravelry group. So here's information that I never tell you. If you're looking for sources of what's going on with the podcast is available on iTunes as the Fat Squirrel Speaks. It's available on YouTube. It's available on my blog, thefatsquirrel.com. And there is a Ravelry group, the Fat Squirrel Speaks. And that's where I'll usually put, like, if there's extra prize question, you know what I mean? Like if there's a prize or something, that's where all comments go, except for, of course, YouTube comments as well. But that's where I'll put this thread, is in the Ravelry group. And it'll be like, what would you like to see in a woolen versus worsted? And I specifically will probably do woolen versus worsted for knitters versus for spinners. I mean, it will still be useful information to you if you are learning to spin or you don't know a lot about it. But it will specifically be geared towards knitters, I think, is my plan. So feel free to put some questions up on that board. Okay, and I'll totally answer them in a bonus podcast. Just saying. Alright, getting flushed. So anyway. Okay, so that takes us into Shenanigans. Were we doing Shenanigans? What's happening? Oh yes, because I talked about we took a bike ride. But more excitingly, what I actually intended to talk to you about was the weekend before I went to the Indiana State Fair. I've been to the Indiana State Fair a couple of times before. We don't go every year because, quite frankly, it is expensive. End of sentence. That adds up, but really it's the rides. And I don't want to ride the rides, but my humans do, especially my tiny human who has a big voice and no job. She wants to ride the rides, and they are wicked expensive. So that's why it's expensive, just because of that. But anyway, so we don't go every year. But when we do, it's kind of a treat. So we went this year. That was the last Sunday of the fair. And Rhymes with Maria and Punky of Another Crafty Girl were... And then Rhymes with Maria with folks from her knit group down south. We were going to come and like all meet up and say hello. And there was... Because it was the day of the sheep to shawl competition, which I had never seen before at our fair. I've seen it at Rhinebeck and other places like that. Actually, literally only Rhinebeck. I'm lying. Seen sheep to shawl, what it is they start the morning, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, they start at like 10 or something like that. And they start with just fleece. I mean, it's washed and ready to go, but it's not carded or anything. And then they card, spin, and weave. So sheep to shawl during the day. So it's like a 4 or 5 hours. I don't know. I'm making that up, but it's in that neighborhood competition. And the one at the state fair is primarily young people because we have I think probably because we have a living history museum up north, which I've talked about before, called Connor Prairie. And so there's only one adult team who were not in costume. I'm throwing shade at you, adult team that are not watching this podcast, but I'm still throwing shade at you. And then I think there were 4 or maybe 5 teams of like kids in the age of like 10 to 16-ish. And they all had themes and were in costume. There was a Wizard of Oz team, I think, yes. There were the Newsies, which was an all young man team. But other ones were all young women. And there was the Von Trapp team. There was a Mary Poppins team. So maybe there were only 4 teams plus the boring adult team. But so we saw that, and then we did some other fair things. We didn't do tons, but it was very fun. And we got to see, we went to the, of course, we went to the agricultural building, which is my favorite part of the fair. I've never done the animals at the state fair. Like, it always happens that either My humans wear out really fast. I'm just gonna admit that about them. They're weak. It's because they eat too much sugar. Not that I don't, please. Okay. But they are so... Come on. It's because they're not that interested. But I am. I could be at the fair for like 12 hours. It'd be totally fine. They're like 4 hours and they're just like, oh my God, what are we still doing? So anyway, so I never have enough time to see everything. Not at the state fair, you can really even see everything. But so I've never done the animals and stuff like that. But still did the ag building, which has all of the like giant pumpkins, the longest gourds, and then it has all of the other like best apples. And let me just discuss, there were so many categories of apples. I'll totally put pictures of the fair in here. So like so many different apple varieties. I was so excited. Yay, state fair. So the fair was awesome. Is there anything else I need to tell you about the fair? You're like, no, there is nothing else you need to tell us about the fair. Shut up. Oh, the bee beard. Hopefully I'll remember to maybe put the picture in here rather than there, because that might scare you if there was just like a dude wearing a bee beard without any sort of introduction. There was a bee beard. Totally volunteer from the audience, from what I can tell. Now this happened beforehand because he had to have like a white button-down shirt on. He couldn't just, you can't go like in your t-shirt because the bees will crawl up in your sleeves and down. So, but we were there maybe 10 to 15 minutes before it actually like was scheduled to begin. And so that gentleman had already left to put on his shirt, but I believe it was a volunteer from the audience because his partner or like somebody that was with him was there and like was chatting with the dude, and they did not appear to know each other. Volunteer from the audience. If I had only been there like 10 minutes sooner, maybe I could have worn a bee beard. Missed opportunities. Anyway, would I have done it? I don't know. I think I would have. If it was a knitting retreat, I totally would have done it. I don't know, among strangers, maybe not. I'm not sure. Anyway, full on 3 pounds of bees on this dude's face. And of course they do it to show the fact that honeybees are not aggressive. They do not want to sting people. And what they do is they put, you probably can't see it, they put this like rubber band around his neck that has this little box on it with their queen in it. And then he holds this board in front of him like this. And they literally just dump pounds of bees on the board.
Oh my. They look awful calm. Alright, I'll shake him up a little bit. That helps. Andy, if you wouldn't mind just covering his face so he can't see what's coming. Ready? Remember, about 7,000 bees. Each one has an extremely sharp stinger. All right, now that queen in the cage is emitting pheromones that are attracting these bees. So Andy and I are just going to kind of speed the process up a little bit by getting them close. And getting them to crawl up on there.
And like the bees start to smell the queen's pheromones. And they start to go towards her, and then they actually use credit cards because they're handy and they're flexible and they work really well to kind of help guide the bees up on the dude's face and then like literally sculpt it. The little gentleman who was doing the the announcing, he had one of those wireless mics on, and I swear he had a big white beard, and every time I looked at him like to just turn my head, I thought he was smoking a pipe, which was because he totally looked like a little sea shanty dude. Anyway, aside. So he was really upset because there was like a 2-dude team doing the beard, and his buddy on the other side was doing a much better job than he was, and like was sculpting a much more artisanal looking like 19th Victorian level beard. And he was like, dude, you gotta trim that down. I was like, mine's not looking as good, just made me look. They were like overly concerned. Well, not overly. They're artisans, people. They were very concerned with the symmetry of the bee beard. It was awesome. Dude totally came out of the tent, because they do this in like a screened tent, and they warn people over and over again. Well, that sounds repetitive, but it's not overly, but just a reminder, like if the bees, a bee will probably get out, please don't swat at it. If you swat at it, that's what's gonna sting you. But like then they opened the tent and dude walked out with the bees on his face. He like shook a few people's hands. They let his daughter kiss him. It's crazy. Okay, really though, those dogs. It's our neighbor 2 doors up, and their dogs just get out randomly during the day and run around and bark like crazy people. Sorry, I tried to shut the window to see if it would help the dogs making sounds. I don't think it will. Stinking dogs. So bee beard. I don't think it's hyperbolic to say that it was epic. Don't think it's hyperbolic at all. So I do apologize about the random dog noise, but they're not my dogs. Anyway. Okay, I think that's it, about silliness. Okay, let's do from the boards. What? So many of you had so many good things to say. It was ridiculous. First off, I want to say I tried to find this okay, so this is about episode 201. These are from the boards from 201. And so I talked about cider, and I talked about some other stuff. Anyway, somebody commented somewhere and I cannot find it. Who are you? You commented about the fact that your family actually freeze their apples. So they pick and then freeze their apples, and then they do small batches of cider throughout the year. And the reason they freeze them is because it breaks down the structure of the apple enough that you can just put them in a press. You don't have to, if you don't know how to make apple juice or cider or whatever, I guess it's technically cider versus, what is the difference, quite frankly? We'll get to that more in a second. You have to break down the apple in some way. You can't put it in a press as a whole apple. Well, maybe you could, but you don't. So you have to break down the apple in some way. You can either, I watched a YouTube video of a dude in England who like found 2 random trees with apples all over them, and so he just like gathered, like, what? That does not happen in the US. I mean, I'm sure it happens somewhere. But our apple trees, like, if you don't like specifically like net them and like guard them and stay up with them all night and like sing them bedtime stories, the birds and the bugs just eat everything. But anyway, he like foraged for these apples and then used his like tiny food processor to mash them all up, and then he had a small cider press that he used. So anyway, and in some way you have to break them up, and then you put them in a press, which is usually like a cylinder either made of stainless steel perforated, or some people, like, you can make them at home you can make them yourself with like buckets and things, or they have like wood slats that are like next to each other but not touching, and then you put like a mesh bag in there and put all your apples in, and then the lid, and then you like screw the thing and it moves down the augury thing and it presses the juice out. Where was I going with this? She freezes her apples. They freeze their apples, and then they make small batches throughout the year. So you don't have to mash them up in some way or crush them or, you know. Who are you? Tell me more. Anyway. Fanny PZA. Oh, she asked about if I could do more of the spinning and the wool. Oh no, okay, that's right. She mentioned, and I think this is just good information to just mention every once in a while for people who are new spinners, because you don't always pay attention to this if you're not a spinner, and so you just don't, you know what I mean? Whatever. I'll say it anyway. She was talking about that she's had some wool that she's been having trouble spinning. She's new, and she's like, she is having trouble with this, and it's like she's not sure if it's the wool or her. Dude, that is such a big part of when you're beginning to spin, and it's, I think, one of the biggest reasons that if you have access to an actual place that does classes, that it's the way to go. Because if you have wool that is not properly prepped, it can make you feel like you can't spin at all. Because even as an experienced-ish spinner, like if I get wool that's felted, now I know that it's felted, so that helps me, like when I get frustrated, know that it's not just me. But when you're first starting out, you don't know that necessarily. And I know you're like, yes, you know if stuff is felted. Spinning fiber, when you're new to it, you don't have a lot of comparison to know. Because it's not like a cloth, you can't still break the fibers apart. It's not like needle felted. But the fibers do not want to let go of each other, and it's very frustrating. So if you are having a lot of trouble and you're new to spinning, get some. I know it's hard to spend money on quality fiber when you know you're just learning, but it makes a huge difference. So if you are in a place where you don't have access to a store that sells fiber, or it's mostly a knitting store and they don't have a lot of spinning expertise, get some fiber from somebody like Joanna Spring, who does Knit Spin Farm. Get some fiber from Into the World. Get some fiber from Three Waters Farm. Get some fiber from Hobbledehoy. You know, there's tons of Fat Cat knits. Like, there's tons of great folks who are doing fiber, and you'll know whether it's you or the fiber. Do you know what I mean? So sorry about these dogs. So, I just wanted to read around. And Deep Blue Renegade she also chimed in on that and said essentially the same thing, and it is so important. And she does beautiful spinning, so trust her probably more than me. Okay, then Dobbernet. We were talking about, this is about cider again, but she's talking about, like, she looked at how to make hardcider.com. And they talk about using a juicer, which you can totally use to make apple juice, to make cider, hard cider. But she brings up the topic of cider apples. And yes, it is very true that there are sweet apples eating apples, and cider apples. And cider apples are actually like Johnny seed apples. Like they're not, because there are varietals that are specifically made to be cider apples. But they're the apples that you would not want to eat fresh. They're usually called bitter tart or things like that. There's usually the word bitter in them. And so it seems strange, right? Because the sugar is what makes the alcohol. So it seems like, oh, a sweet apple has more sugar, so it would make a more alcoholic cider. But actually, these bitter sharp or bitter tart or bitter whatever apples actually have more sugars in them. They just don't taste like it to us because they also have more tannins and whatever the other thing is. I can't remember right now. But they have other things that mask the sugar quantity, quantity of the apple. So actually, they actually do have more sugar in them than a Golden Delicious, for example. You just don't taste it as well. So there are definitely, a lot of people say you should never make hard cider with just straight sweet apple cider, but like if you don't have access to hard cider apples, then you don't have access to them. Period. And they're hard to find, quite frankly. So that, anyway, just a bit about actual cider apples versus your regular eating apples. And then next, just Lisa. She chimed in about, I mentioned last time that I would do a prize and do sweater tea towels. Okay, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to confuse anybody. I forget that you're not in my head and that you're not there to ask me clarifying questions sometimes. Sweater tea towels. I'm using this design. And now I can't remember what her name is. I've actually communicated with her on Etsy, on Spoonflower several times now. But suddenly I can't remember it. It's like not in my head. But I will try to find that while I'm talking to you. But so they're you know, like the traditional tea towels that are the calendar. So this one is 2018. This one is in Welsh, but I'm going to do English ones as well. So yeah, and the reason this is not, I'm actually getting a contrast to do like a bias binding on the edging of them, which will be this color. So that's what I meant when I said sweater towel, tea towel. I didn't mean to be weird and confusing. But I often am. Quite frankly. Okay, there she is. Carrie Gwynn. So she's a designer that works with Spoonflower. And I apologize if I'm not saying that right, but it's CERIGWEN. Okay. So there's that. Okay, so now what else? Oh, Kitty J. I thought this was so cute, and I love this. She speaks briefly in the boards about, because I was talking about home canning last time too. She speaks briefly about the contrast between canning in the UK and canning in the US, which I find fascinating. Actually, in general, just find it fascinating how we develop myths or like societal norms about how to store foods and how those are different than other societies and cultures. So like, for example, like butter being refrigerated, like I actually no longer refrigerate butter. I mean, I refrigerate it to store it, but like the stick that's out, like I just leave it out in a butter dish. And I never thought that was allowed. It's totally fine. We might eat some butter in this house. It's not like sitting there for a month and a half, but I'm just saying. And then you have soft butter for your toast, people. Life-changing. Right. So like eggs, you know, the fact that in lots of other countries, eggs are not refrigerated in the grocery store. We think that's crazy, but it's, again, totally fine. And again, if you have fresh eggs from a person that you trust, like you don't need to refrigerate those eggs because they have like a special nature provided sealant on the egg that protects it. So you need to refrigerate those. But anyways, it's just, I think that fascinating. But she talks, and I feel like I saw this somewhere, and I remember it at the time being like, what? But I could not tell you where I saw it. They use like old jam jars to can jam in. Totally a thing. What? No hot water bath. Just put the hot jam in there. It'll self-seal. What? I love it. I love it. Live on the edge. If it's got mold on it, just scrape it off. Yes. That is a make, do, and mend culture, and I dig it. Right? I love it. Yes, if we had rationing instituted in our country for what, 40, 30? Forever. Guys had rationing forever. One pair of pants per year. That was your ration, people. I feel like we would be much more reasonable human beings. I mean, I don't want, you know what I mean? Like the reason for rationing was not, but I'm just saying, it creates a different mindset, a different societal norm, which we are lacking. As we consume way too much. We would throw out the moldy jam, so just rip it off. I was a cheesemonger for a very reputable Whole Foods grocery store. I cut a lot of mold of a lot of cheese. It's fine. So anyway, I think that's fascinating. I love it. Okay, so then also, I think I skipped some people. Maybe not. Oh, wait, NGO 1999. She's the one who did all the... It actually would take you less time to just read the boards, but I don't trust that you're doing it. So I feel like I have to... Also, I want to, like, and publicly like high five the people who are putting information out there because it's awesome. But anyway, MGO 1999 chimed in to say that she uses the book Putting Food by Ruth Hertzberg, Beatrice Vaughn, and Janet Green, which has been in circulation for a very long time. I think we're on the fifth edition. But then she goes on to say, so cute, that the reason she found this out is because, not knowing any better, our first garden was planted with 40 tomato plants of various kinds. Also 8 cherry tomato plants that grew to be 5 feet tall. We also planted every other vegetable you can name. I thought that only half of what I planted would live and produce. My huge garden space was previously a corral for cows. All that cow manure did amazing things after being left dormant for a few years before we planted. We had crops of vegetables coming out our ears. Out of great necessity, we learned what to do with all our crops thanks to that book and the old farmer and his wife across the road who took pity on a very pregnant me and my husband. People. You have such good stories, people. Makes me so happy. That's so cute. I love it. I mean, like, what a terrible wrong, like, mistake, quote unquote, to make. To have a completely insane overabundance of vegetables. So exciting. So anyway, so I did get that book, and she is right. She recommended that one because it's been in circulation for so long, and it has been updated and revised. And I have not gotten like far into it yet, so I don't want to do like a review of the book so far. But I am enjoying it, and your library probably has a copy, so go check it out. And it does, I think, have more information about the actual. Again, it's not like nitty-gritty science, but it has good information about not just pressure canning, hot water bath canning, but also freezing. I don't know if that's dehydrating or not, but it was very interesting so far. And I'm very excited about the fact that there is a winter squash butter recipe. I'm super excited about that. I mean, I get so jazzed about winter squash anyway. And then I could make... Thinking that would be amazing with tacos. I'm just saying. You could stir it into soups. Just saying. I have plans for this squash butter that I have not made yet. Okay, then Kay Landy talks about cider clubs, and this is a great point because I didn't think about it. But there are lots of home brewing clubs, and within their ranks are people who do ciders and meads, because quite frankly, ciders and meads require, well, it does take more equipment to create the cider, like to go from apple to cider. You can use purchased cider, like lots of times your local orchard will have unpasteurized ciders, or they will be willing to hold out 5 gallons from their pasteurization process. To give you, but a lot of them do actually have an unpasteurized version. Excuse me, I'm so sorry. And you can actually make it with pasteurized cider too. You can do whatever. So it makes sense because there's actually less equipment that you are required, and it's not as lengthy and involved a process as is beer making. But there are part of homebrew clubs, so that's a great idea. You can totally check for that resource in your area. Thank you, Kalandy. Clandy. Okay. And then what else? Oh my gosh. I think that's all for Oh no, this was so cute too. Nellie Bean posted about who cares? I just read this to you. Love the episode, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I live in a village in the UK with our own community orchard. We all use this fruit together with surplus from our gardens to make apple juice and cider. Sorry, I just was thinking about the Women's Institute and I just bluttered that up. It's not a male-dominated group. Everyone joins in with all tasks. Local cider is usually still, cloudy, and strong. Agree with Katie J. We have a rather relaxed attitude to jam making here with lots of old jam jars repurposed and scraping of mold off the jam before using. Not really advised, but I do so hate waste. I love it. Anyway, and she also posts a link to her orchard that is the community orchard. I don't think I have a skill that could get me a visa, but just saying. Okay, and then on the YouTubes, Teresa Dalis, I think is what her name is. I think what I wrote down. She offers a suggestion. I talk about having a million mosquito bites every time I walk in my stinking backyard. She suggests that you dip a cloth or paper towel or whatever, cotton ball, in straight ammonia, and then you put it on your mosquito bite, and that will make it not itch. I'd never heard that one. She says it totally works. You can also dip a metal spoon, in boiling water, or like just been boiled water, and then put it up. But be careful. Be careful. You can burn yourself. But if you put a hot spoon on your mosquito bite, the heat will break down the enzyme that makes you itch. And that totally works, but you do have to be careful. And also if you have like 10 mosquito bites, it's frustrating to try to get them all. And also you can really burn yourself. And maybe also your husband. I totally burned him. He didn't know it wasn't supposed to burn that bad. Anywho. And then last comment is from... Sorry, I had to take a screenshot of it. Okay. It's from the Jasper Patch. And amongst other things, she is also in for Fat Squirrel cider. But she talks about back in the old country, there's cider and there's apple juice. None of this hard cider malarkey. So they just don't differentiate. Like apple juice is however it's made. Whether it's made through like, to be honest with you, I don't really know the difference. But apple juice doesn't oxidize like cider does. So it's like beautiful and light golden versus, I don't know, whatever. I'm itching my nose, sorry. But anyway, none of this hard cider malarkey. When we moved over here, I managed to get drunk a couple of times on cider before discovering there was no booze content at all. Thanks for being a human, Jasper Patch. That's really cute. So anyway, so that's from the boys. Thanks for entertaining me and sticking with me. If you didn't and you skipped ahead, welcome back. Anyway. Do you see how crazy these show notes are? Could they maybe have like 40 additional illustrations of sweaters and project bags I'm working on? That's helpful. But I think that's it. So I did also want to mention very briefly, the beautiful Knit Cahoots sent me a copy of their Minnesota 52, 16 knits inspired by the road, for review. I don't typically do Bic reviews, and other people have done beautiful reviews of it. But I do want to mention, which I've not heard other people mention, and maybe this book is, not only does it have really nice patterns in it, I think this is the one that's on my short list right here. Oh wait, that's not a good picture. There we go. Is the No Mountain High Enough hat. And there's matching mittens. So it's just worsted weight 2-color. But like, I'll try not to show you too much. But like, look at the clarity of the charts. Wait, I shouldn't show it. And the paper is like that matte, that's not super rough, like not super toothy, but this beautiful, just like non-glossy. I really enjoy the quality of this book. And from what I understand, each copy does come with a digital download so that you can get it on Ravelry as well, which I highly appreciate. And then the other thing I wanted to mention, besides the lovely patterns, which again, other folks have really talked about in a beautiful way. And I also wanted to say that I like the clarity of the size charts. Like, look at all that information in your size chart. So not only is there a schematic drawing, but because there's such a variance in size range, there's such a big size range, that's what I was trying for. She's actually put them into this chart, which I find very helpful, and it's in both inches and centimeters. But the other thing I want to talk about that I enjoyed quite a lot is that for each pattern, there's like a little short excerpt. That's not the right word because it's not an excerpt from anything. There's a little short narrative by the designer about different things, and it includes personal photographs, which I find to be very charming. Right? So anyway, so enjoyable. And again, the quality of the book, and also the cover is that it's that, I don't know what it's called, but it has that, it's again not a glossy cover, it's definitely matte, but it has that kind of like almost waxy surface that I find to be very enjoyable and durable. Maybe we should talk about some knitting. So thanks, Nick Coots, Megan Williams, and Corey. I rock knits. Okay, so let's talk about things you've already seen. I didn't bring sock blockers. Of course I didn't. I finished socks from my papaw. So these are the Bootstrap socks by, you can find that pattern in Sock Architecture. Laura Neel Bootstrap sock, which I totally enjoy knitting. It has a little garter tab or panel that goes down and ends right before the bottom of the foot. So right, it doesn't go into the sole, but it does have a fun little, because of that, you know, garter has a shorter or a higher number of rows per inch, so it brings it in a little bit. So it has a nice little snugging effect, much like a ribbing would. And then it has but it is flat on the bottom, so you don't have extra texture at the ball of your foot. This is Hazel Knits Artisan sock in the penny loafer colorway, and yeah, so this is a size 64 or 64 stitch. Right. They look much less stripy in real life. The camera picks up on the stripe more. In real life, you don't really notice it. This yarn is a joy. The pattern is very enjoyable. Hopefully Papa likes them. Okay, the next thing that I have to show you is something that I had just started last time. Oh gosh, it's got so many strings on it. This house is full of string. Can't imagine why. It's the Hapbee Bonnet by Katrin Schubert. It is a pay-for pattern that is for, I believe it's 4 sport weight yarn, if I'm not mistaken. And it is in 3 sizes. I think it's 3 to 6, 6 to 9, and then a bigger size if I'm not mistaken. But please check the pattern. I'm just making that up quite quickly. I made, maybe it's DK that it's written for. I'm not sure. I just make things up. But look how cute it is. Right. There's the back of it. What? There's the side. How cute is that? So the navy blue is Quince & Company, their fingering weight in the Peacoat colorway. And then this is from a set of batlings by Hobbledehoy. And this is the inside out version. So, how cute is that? And it was so joyous to knit. My version is fingering weight. So I made the largest size. I don't know any longer. I no longer have a baby to put it on to check, but how cute is that? And then just I-cord for the right. This was a very pleasant way to get some brioche in without having a huge project commitment. I just found a snag. Oh, crud. It's not a snag, it's a stitch that I missed. Anyway, isn't it cute? It was very pleasant to make, and it's very squishy. So yay that. Okay. So then the next thing I have to show you, is my Monte Rosa cardigan, which is kind of done-ish. It's done-ish, but I am waiting on a zipper. So the original pattern does not indicate a zipper. It has a button band, but I do find that while it is a pain to put in a zipper, I do sometimes get better use out of a sweater with a zipper, especially if it's like an about the house kind of thing. Okay, so Monte Rosa by Isabell Kraemer, that's right. So I made mine a short sleeve version. Mine is knit with Rowan worsted, which is a superwash wool, which is a little bit, it's not the softest wool in the world, but I do think it softens up a bit with washing, and it's fairly economical, and I think it will wear fairly well as well. But, so yeah, there it is. Ah! So hopefully next time I'll get a zipper in it and get on the human shot. So right. And then the collar does need to be it's a folded in half thing, so that also will have to be tacked down. But I thought that would be perfect for a zipper because I can just hide because I don't order this, I just cut the zipper to size. But it's a great place to hide that end of the zipper, which often looks a little raggedy if it's not a perfect length zipper. So yeah, so I don't know, we'll see. I hope the zippers, I ordered 2 different ones. I ordered one that's this color, and then one that's this color. So hopefully one of those 2 will look nice. And then I haven't decided yet if I will just apply it directly to this edge, or if I will pick this up to do an I-cord and then put the zipper on. I also had found this new tutorial, well, it's not new, it's actually quite old, about using a knit picker, which is like a teensy tiny latch hook, where you actually pierce the zipper tape and apply yarn to it. So you can either have live stitches where you're using the latch hook to pull up yarn and leave them on a live stitch, or you can do it like a crochet chain almost edging, like you're folding them over each other, so that you can either stitch it on with like mattress stitch. If I would have known about this beforehand, I would have totally made it so that I could mattress stitch that thing on there, because how tidy would that look? Tidy. So I may do, if the knit picking thing works, I may try to do, not because I don't have anything good sewing a zipper in, but just be interesting to see how it works. But I might do like pick up live stitches on my zipper tape, and then pick up live stitches on the edge of this, and then do like an I-cord join on them. I don't know, that might be too crazy. We'll see. So those are my ideas. This is a very enjoyable knit. It's garter stitch, it has a slip stitch, faux seam a la, well actually I think Elizabeth Zimmerman actually drops hers and then picks it back up, but it has like a little faux slip stitch seam, which I think is a very nice little detail. It was a very pleasant knit, and it's a very woolly silly yarn. Yay! So I'm excited. I think this is gonna be very versatile. I really did question my oatmeal choice. I think, to be honest, I think I may have gotten it on sale at Webb's. Not gonna lie. And the pattern is clearly pictured in an oatmeal and an orange combo, so I think I just did the exact same thing. So I was a little bit like, why did I get that color? But really, when you're doing cable work, you do want a lighter color yarn. It just shows up so much better. So, I don't know, we'll see. But I think I dig it. Even though it's not my normal color option. Speaking of I'll show you this thing. I have gotten through the body of I'll just show it to you now. What am I talking about? I finished the body of my Waits cardigan, which is a pattern by Bristol Ivy. And I am really slogged up on deciding what to do about the sleeves. I will be honest with you, it's kind of in a timeout. Not because it is not nice, it's just not what I thought it was going to be. And through no fault of the pattern, I kind of messed up. Apparently for my size, I was supposed to stop down here earlier than I did. Because you're bringing these all together, you're bringing the garter, the stockinette, and the garter together, through decreases. And apparently I was supposed to stop when I had 50 stitches on my needle, but in my head that never even occurred to me because I don't know, it wouldn't be flat, would it? Whatever. I don't know what I'm talking about. You don't know what I'm talking about unless you've done this pattern. But anyway, so it is much longer in the back than it is in the front. I knew that it would be longer in the back, but it is considerably longer on the back than it is in the front. So I'm having a moment where I'm not sure how I feel about it. So it is in a timeout of sorts. I'm trying to decide if I should put, if I'm just going to go ahead and leave it as a cap sleeve, or if I'm actually going to try to do it as an elbow length sleeve. I haven't decided. I'm not anti it. It's just it's not what I thought it was going to be, and so it's going to take me a moment to rediscover what it actually is. Can you see? if I hold it up, can you see the difference between the front length and the back length? So here's the front, here's the back. Like, that's a big difference. And I'm not anti that at all, but in my head it was gonna be like a cropped sweater that I would wear over like one of my dress number ones or whatever during the summer. And now the back is so much longer that it actually comes down below waist level. And again, it's not a bad thing. I just haven't quite figured it out yet. So it's in my head. I don't want to wear it with like a traditional like shirt and pants thing because I feel like it's too many lines, because like the cropped part would be above the shirt in the front but below it in the back, and I'm just not, so I feel like it really, the dress, like it works well with like a longer tunic, but then I'm just not sure about it. So it needs to just macerate up here for a minute. Did I say anything about it? I said it's by Bristol Ivy. It's 2 skeins of Wollmeise lace garn held double, and the colorways are in the show notes. I'll put the colorways of my my sweater and the coat and my Monte Rosa in the show notes as well. But it's very lovely, and again, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed knitting it quite a lot. I'm just reconciling. And that is in a bag by Joanna of Knit Spin Farm. Okay, so then the last thing I have to show you is a new thing. And are you ready? So this is the Ninilchik Swoncho by Caitlin Hunter. I'm just saying. There's an informal Swanchalong on Instagram if you're interested in joining us. Because sometimes in a garment that's slightly unusual like this, you can be really intrigued but just need somebody to push you. To be like, yes, it's okay for you to make that. Go for it. So there's an informal Swanchalong on Instagram. You can search that hashtag. So this is a DK weight poncho in 2 sizes. Well, again, it's a Swoncho because it does have a sleeve. It's in 2 sizes. So the first size is extra small through medium, and the other size is large through 3X. The body circumference of the smaller size is 69 inches, and the larger is 83 inches. Yeah, you need DK yarn. You need 1,400 to 2,000 yards for the body, and you need, for the whole thing. I was like, whoa, I didn't get that much. That's because it's for the whole thing, dummy, not for your main color. The main color, you need 8 to 1,100 yards. The contrast colors 1 and 2, you need 230 to 320 yards, depending on which size you are. And then the C3, you need 200 to 280 yards. Now, for some reason in my head, I think it was originally I was going to try to do it out of Peace Fleece, their DK Sport. And so somehow I got in my head that it was sport weight, and I got all confused trying to get colors together. But ultimately, in Stash, I was lucky enough to have some Woolen Rabbit that I had purchased to make a Stephen West S-John shawl. So I had these 3 colors. So these are my C1, 2, and 3. And the beautiful thing about this yarn is not only is it very delightful, because boy howdy it is, but it also is 330 yards in a skein. How lucky is that? So the yellow is Butterscotch, the red is Tiger Lily, and I'm sorry, I don't know what the taupe is because I've lost the tag, because I may have bought this like 3 years ago. Maybe 4, I don't know. And then my main color is some Cascade 220, which again is listed as a worsted weight, but it is a little thicker than these guys. Whatever, it was in Stash. So this is Cascade 220 in color number 2431. So basically I was trying to knit this from Stash because I have so much awesome yarn. And it would have been so fun to get a new set of yarn to make it, but it's also fun to use what you have. So this is what I have so far. Of course, I am making the bigger size. Right. Let me try to flip that down for you a little bit. So there are 5 colorwork bands, and I just finished the 3rd one. Right. And the other reason I was okay with the main color being slightly heavier weight, because it's a worsted, but it's definitely a light worsted, and those lines are all gray, quite frankly, is because the body then will just be, might be slightly bigger in circumference, which would not be a terrible thing for moi, because I am definitely a 3X. And I hope it's 3X in like normal terms and not tiny lady terms, because sewing 3X is like 44-inch bust. What? What? Yeah, right. A 3X t-shirt is like a 52-inch bust. How are... Anyway. It's very enjoyable. There are lots of cool color combinations. You should totally look on project pages and on Instagram, because Tuft Woolens and Pixie Chick Knits are doing amazing color combos. I really wanted to do a fun, like, modern color combo, which was going to involve some Leading Min fiber arts and like a peachy hot pink and a winey purple and like an acidy green. But my gauge was way off, so that's going to be a sweater now. So I wanted to do a modern combo, so I was a little bit hesitant about this, like, so there's this thing, like, it's a poncho, right? Like, you don't want it to look, you want it to look modern. Like, I don't want to look like I found it under, like, a bed when I was cleaning out my great aunt's home. You know? Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I can't pull that off. So I was a little hesitant. I'm like, oh, are these colors 270s? But it is really beautiful. And this yarn is super pleasant to work with, this Woolen Rabbit. Did I tell you that it's 85% pullwork, 15% skilk? Did I even tell you the name of the base? No, I didn't. Of course I didn't. Terrible podcaster. I'm a hot mess as well. I've already lost the tags. Really? Really, universe? Well, anyway, it's the Woolen Rabbit, and it's her DK base that is 85% pullwork and 15% silk. It's very enjoyable. Yay, that! And there are some short rows in the back to help it be a little bit longer in the back than it is in the front. And it's pretty much just very pleasant. Okay? There are 2 rows in which you need to have 3 colors active, which is different than your typical stranded knitting. It is only 2 rows, I think, that have that. And what I did on the first row was not what was the most effective. What I did on the second row, what it is like knit 1 red, knit 2 taupe, knit 1 brown, knit 2 taupe, knit 1 red. So if you try to just like carry 2 colors in one hand, it's very hard to catch your floats. So you got a 5-strand float on both your red and taupe, on your red and brown, which is like not ideal. And you can tell, like on the row that I did that, it's a tighter row because my floats aren't as nice and loose. However, what I did the next time was I actually did it in 2 rounds. So the first round I slipped the red and the brown stitches and just knit the taupe stitches. So round 1, I slipped 1, knit 2 taupe. Did I say that right? The first round I just knit the color that was 2 stitches of each. So let's say in this example that is taupe. Slip 1, knit 2 taupe, slip 1, knit 2 taupe, around. And then the next round, which is technically the same round, but you know, the next pass, shall I say, I would knit 1 red, slip 2 that I had just knitted in the previous pass, slip 1 brown, and that way I could catch the floats of those, just knitting with the red and the brown, I could catch those floats so that I had only 3-stitch float, you know, 2 stitches like caught in the middle of that 5-stitch float. So that worked much better. And I don't think it took any longer, really. So that was much more it was a much more even looking. Now nobody would look at this and be like, oh my gosh, look at that around. Oh, but looking at it up close, I can tell a difference. So I can tell a significant difference. Okay, much more attractive the second way. So just a thought, just food for thought. I should somehow maybe post that somewhere else. I don't know. Can I post that in the Swoncho? Maybe I'll figure that out in a minute. Okay, so that's all the knitting. Right. Craziness. There is no shameless self-promotion. There is an update on September 1st of favorites, so it'll have library card bags and granny square bags. There will probably not be a regular shop update in September. I don't know, but there probably won't be. I am getting ready to do two vending affairs. I plan to be able to vend at the Signature Needles Retreat, and then also at Needles Up, which is the Friday before Ride Back, which means I will be at Ride Back with my mom and her husband. Maybe my kid, I don't know yet. But definitely my mom and her husband, they're coming with me. It's gonna be crazy. So I have lots to do to get ready for those two things. So the shop updates will be a little thin on the ground. I know you have enough bags, you're okay. I know, just telling you. So I think that's all. Oh my gosh, right. All right, I'll talk to you later. Bye.